the thing about Anne Rice, vampires, witches, and Jesus. The blood is the life. Anne's three main narratives. I want to put in the idea that the old angels, like in demonology, angelology, are part of the narrative of the vampire. And there is a big case to be made there. But Lady Anne Rice wrote these three subjects that are completely profound, and if one ties them together, you get a very long-legged narrative into bloodlines, the Merovingians, the Scythians, etc., going way back, and an idea of what this species, the endangered species, is. And I want to point our finger towards Sir Malcolm, who wrote the book Angels, an Endangered Species, as well as Holy Grail and others who just passed before I could get him on the show. He has archives that we need access to. So this brings us into Queen of the Damned and the astrology that you have and the insight you have as to this blood working that's happening, because this all started with a blood working long ago.
The astrology that I'm looking at right now is about Venus, and I want to point out that Anne Rice knows Venus more than any other writer I've ever read. So when we're talking about the Queen of Heaven as the Queen of the Damned, that is in the most ancient tablets. In the Sumerian tablets, we're talking about Inanna's descent down into the underworld and her meeting with the Dark Sister, and she is considered like the Queen of Heaven, and no one can ever shame her or guilt her. And her sister Ereshkigal looks at her and says, "You are guilty too. You are guilty too, and you too will be hung on a meat hook and left for dead." And if you've read the ancient stories of Inanna and Ishtar and Esther and Easter and this whole story of the blood sacrifice, it started with Inanna, who is Venus. In the ancient world, the idea was that Venus had to go through this descent period, and she is behind the sun and then reemerges as a morning star. And when she does so, she's ready to do battle. But not only is she ready to do battle, but she's looking for the blood sacrifice. And so in order for the listeners to get into this, I'm going to read some sources from the Akkadian sources about Ishtar and Inanna. So we're talking about the great goddess that is also known as Astarte, Sybil, Aphrodite, Kor, and Marie. So I'm going to read a bit, and then I will explain why this is important because of what I see in March of 2025. The powers of the underworld bowed down before her when she went underground to rescue her son lover Tammuz. She said to the 7 gatekeepers, "If thou openest not the gate so that I cannot enter, I will smash the door. I will shatter the bolt. I will smash the doorpost. I will move the doors. I will raise up the dead, eating the living, so that the dead will outnumber the living." Gilgamesh said that the goddess was cruel to her lovers, since each in turn personified the dying god who refreshed the earth's fertility with his blood. When the god was incarnate as a bull, the animal was emasculated and the severed genitals were thrown to the goddess's image in a rite that probably derived from the rite of self-emasculation, which has been practiced in honor of Ishtar. Ishtar's priestesses apparently performed some version of the rite each year in the Temple of Jerusalem, where the virgin form of the goddess was called Mari, Mariana, Mariam, Miriam, and her holy annual wailing for the sacrificial death of Tammuz, her Christ. Okay, so now I'm going to continue a bit there. So the descent into hell is a perilous but necessary part of the sacred drama. And from the most ancient sources, the script that is playing out here, which can be seen by astrologers if they have eyes to see it in that way, this whole thing has been scripted and is coming to this culmination, or what you call the event horizon, of what this place is about. And the drama, the sacred drama that is playing out right now, has much to do with this story of I will raise up the dead, eating the living, so that the dead will outnumber the living. And the purpose for this, according to this great goddess who was so cruel to her lovers, was that it was a right to restore the earth's fertility with blood. So when I'm thinking about this as a script, so I think of this as like the demiurge game, or it's a show. It's actually a movie that we are engaged in, that we are playing, that we are performers in. Each of us has a written script. Okay. When I was thinking about Pegasus and this project Pegasus that began with NASA, or whatever NASA is, back in 1969, and it has slowly been developing into something else. So I'm going to get to that point when I explain how this all ties together. But what I can see coming up in the opposition, where Venus is right now in Libra, she's the queen of heaven. She's in her own domicile. Right now, I would say, we are as happy and joyful as we're going to be for a while. So everyone just look around at your great happiness and joy right now. Because, because where we are right now, Venus is totally happy as Inanna. She's the queen of heaven still. She's social. She wants to relate. She wants to harmonize. But next March, I have a series of things that will happen at 10 degrees Aries, which is why I need to talk to you about it, Niish.
Yes.
So at 10 degrees Aries, everyone should be checking your chart.